Hey, Read Through the Word. Today is October 19th, and today's lesson is called Jesus Wept. We are looking today at the story of the death of Lazarus, and then it stops with our reading. So Wendy's going to get to pick up with that next part, and I was all ready to look at, oh yay, Lazarus, and then it stops right before. So, Wendy will, have that next portion, but what I want to look at, specifically our verse today, is the Jesus wept verse, which when I was a child, I remember learning like some kind of trivia thing I had that, this shortest verse in the Bible, and when I teach, I'm like, you memorize verses, but you're not allowed to, like, you have to bring in a verse next week, you memorize, but you're not allowed to do Jesus wept. And those type of things. But when I was a child, this is what shocks me. And the hardest time memorizing Bible verses. I used to, now this is a denominational thing. I was involved in ACT Teens when I was younger. And I remember memorizing verses just enough to get them, like, to do my little ceremony thing. And then I lost them. I believe the Holy Spirit has brought them back to mind. And which is it's just very interesting to me now. So all that about Jesus wept. But here we are with the story of Lazarus. So we're in the Gospel of John again. Remember, belief or unbelief. And we have I am statements that will show up in the story of Lazarus, not this specifically today. And then what else is there that doesn't show up today? The I am statement. Oh, the testimony. And, it does. I think it does show up today. But the testimony in here. But you have the story of Lazarus. And so Lazarus, Mary and Martha are good friends of Jesus. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are all good friends of Jesus. And Mary and Martha are his sisters. And we have this account of what's going on. So in John... let's see. I'm trying to think how much to do of this, because we would be here forever. But we have the story. So let's just back up and we'll start. So a man named Lazarus is sick, and he lived in Bethany with his sisters Mary and Martha. And we see this, that Lazarus is sick. They send for Jesus, and Jesus waits to come. And that's a whole different discussion about what he's doing. And he's doing it so that God will be glorified, because he knows he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. And which is coming. That's in your reading tomorrow. So right here, we're at this point. So he comes up, and they're like, it's just best just to stick with it. When Jesus arrived at Bethany, this is verse 17 of John 11, he was told Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. So, that idea that he was dead. For 3 days, it could have been iffy, but by day 4, your soul's left your body, and that was the belief of the time, and you were done. So he purposely waits till he's dead, according to Jewish tradition. And so Martha's like, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus says, your brother will rise again. Yes, he will rise when everybody else does on resurrection day. And Jesus told her, here's our another I am. I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Martha? See, there's our belief again. Yes, Lord. I've always believed. Here's your testimony. You are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come to the world from God. Then she turned to Mary. And she called Mary aside from the mourners and said, the teacher is here and he wants to see you. So Mary went immediately to him. Jesus had stayed outside the village at the place where Martha had met him. And when the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' grave to weep, so they followed her there. And when Mary arrived, she saw Jesus, and she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and he saw the other people wailing with her, we're going to talk about all of this. I love that the New Living Translation translated this the way they did, because it really does key into original meaning. It says, a deep anger welled within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? He asked. They told him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. The people were standing nearby. See how much he loved him? And some said, this man healed a blind man. Remember? Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? And they don't know what's about to happen. So, I want to talk about this. So, we have this text right here that gives us this very, if you're familiar with the Bible and have been in the church a while, you know this text. We know Lazarus. We know Mary and Martha. But when we look here, this is not a private conversation. If we notice, there's lots of onlookers and bystanders that have gathered. There's a crowd there. The Jewish mourners would have come along with her, also weeping. It talks about the crowd being there and the weeping that's going on. And in response, some English translations have the form of deeply moved in spirit and troubled. And it's not as accurate a translation. That's why I love the way New Living has done this, because they do it. It's the verb that's used there. Doesn't mean simply depth of emotion. It's like he was outraged. And then in John 11:38, when it says the beginning of your reading. On tomorrow, it says Jesus was still angry. So there's an anger there. So I think one of the major discussions we have is why Jesus cried. Why did Jesus weep? I mean, you hear Jesus was sad because his friend had died. Well, he knew he was about to bring him back to life. Then you hear he was sad because he had to bring him back to life. And then, so you've got that. But if you see that, we think about tears that we shed. So we put it in our context of tears that are shed at our funerals. We might say, just that. Jesus is crying because, and that's what his friend said. Oh, how he must have loved him. Look at him crying. That's what the people there think. But, Jesus knows in about 3 minutes, Lazarus won't be dead anymore. He's going to be brought back to life. It says he's deeply outraged and troubled, and then he weeps. He sees Mary weeping, and the Jews who came with her are also weeping. And so this is a lot of noise. There's crying and wailing going on. That was culturally what had been happening after the death of someone. That's what's going on. The Jewish mourners were there. And there was lots of noise, cries, outbursts, music, dirges, all sorts of things culturally that would have happened here. And there's more tears and there's more weeping. And Jesus is angry. Why is he angry? Why does Jesus cry? Why does Jesus weep? Now, this is an I believe statement, which I try not to make a lot, or an I think. I think there are many reasons for tears. It could have been many. Contextually, biblically, gospel-wise, I think this one makes the most sense. But it's just like me. If I ever cry, I'm like, why am I crying? There's probably 4 or 5 different reasons I am. But because what Jesus is angry about, what he's troubled about, because all of this noise and all of this crying and all of this sadness that's going on around. He's angry because of what he sees, the last enemy, death. We have in our culture, we've I don't like the word prettied up, but we have lessened sometimes the impact of death. The way a funeral would happen with us is totally different from what's going on here. Not that this is even a funeral. This is just in the days of mourning. But when someone dies now, culturally, where I live, the body's taken away. It's embalmed. And then everything's in a funeral home. And nice and quiet. And they make it try to look like it's just a normal part. But it's not the way death is in many cultures around our world. That's how it looks here. I live in the United States, and that's what it looks like. But sometimes there are cultures around the world where death is a desperate thing, and it's no mistake that Paul says the last enemy is death. That it doesn't have the last say. No, not for the Christian. Death does not have the last say, but it's the last enemy. We ought to be angered by it. We lay our spouses in the tomb. We lay our parents in the tomb. I mean, I've watched Wendy and what she's had to do with her family this year. That's a lot. Some of you have lost babies. And there's, of course, there's a joy in us as a Christian that death doesn't have the last word. And sometimes, when it comes to that point and you've watched a loved one suffer for years, that, you're glad that when they close their eyes and they open them up, they're in the presence of the Lord. But that's wonderful, but it doesn't take away from the tragedy and the ugly. That's one of the things Wendy has said. Death is ugly. It is. It's not. It doesn't have the last say for a Christian, but death is ugly. It's sorrow and it's bereavement. And all of that, what gets to Jesus is all of this is happening. All of Mary and Martha crying, the death of Lazarus, the mourners, the noise, the dirges, the tomb behind the tomb that has his friend. All of it is because of sin. All of it. Jesus sees sin and tears and death and loss. And he's outraged, and he's angry, and he weeps. It's like when he pronounces the woes over Jerusalem, and he weeps there. I think sometimes we speed too fast we think about how, yes, we're now, that death does not have the last say, and we're before the Lord, but death is a reminder for us that this is not the way it was supposed to be. That is an ugly thing. It's appointed for all of us to die. And then the judgment. There's no escaping it. Death is the wages of sin. It's the fruit of sin. It's inevitable. It's unavoidable. And it's ugly. And Jesus will address it. And that's why he says, I am the resurrection and the life. So we'll see that. But it's tears of outrage here. But I think this story of Lazarus, and tomorrow you'll read how the story continues. But as we look at this today, death is a reminder to us is this is not how it was supposed to be. Death is a reminder of sin for us. And it was a reminder for Jesus of the wages of sin and what it had cost the people that he loved, that death has done this. But he knows death does not have the final say, and it is the last enemy to be defeated. And I can't wait for that day. So, we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.